The Trump administration is no longer able to refuse to issue passports to transgender and non-binary Americans that reflect their gender identities. This comes following a federal judge made that ruling on Tuesday, and that judge concluding that President Trump likely discriminated on the basis of sex and was rooted in an irrational prejudice towards transgender Americans that violated the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment. The judge adding that granting class action status to two categories of passport holders was appropriate, given that the administration's actions affected them uniformly.
We're joined now by Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, you always say you don't have a crystal ball, but you do know law. And so it seems like this is another one that you called and said, I don't know if this is going to stick.
I like how you rhymed right there, too. But nonetheless, I can say this, that at the end of the day, this is one that was clearly able to see you can't discriminate on sex. It's a protected class. 20 years ago, I think we have a different conversation. But post 2020, post the Bostock case, you now have to consider sex in a person's gender identity is included in sex. And if you're including that in sex, you can't wholeheartedly come out with an executive order that says, now I'm not going to issue passports to folks that are doing something based on sex. I mean, this is the easiest one. These were harder like in the 60s and the 70s where folks were attempting to discriminate against people, but it was like undercover discrimination. These are blatant discriminations. And so you can see the courts are saying, never before, like the one we talked about yesterday, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've never seen a more palpable case of discrimination. This is, I would say, in that same vein. I mean, he outright says that you can only get a passport if it accurately reflects the holder's sex. Well, now you're discriminating against folks that wanted to have an X on there that were identified in a different capacity. Well, the court is saying that this is going to hold up for now. And I say emphasis for now. I'm not sure how long it will hold up, and we'd have to keep watching to see.
Khalif, this initially was limited to just 6 plaintiffs. Now this has been open. It's a class action suit. They're saying any U.S. citizen is now protected under this. How does that change things? And what do people do if you fall into this category?
This opens up the conversation to how we've talked about a number of times in the past with these nationwide injunctions. A judge, when they listen to a case, they have an opportunity to do a couple things. They can say, I'm going to make it a blanket one, or I'm going to make it isolated. This is only going to talk about these plaintiffs that brought this case, these 6 individuals, and it's not for the rest of the country. Most of the time, a judge isn't going to do that. They want to make sure they include everyone. But every once in a while, they do. The Supreme Court probably does that more than anyone else, where they'll say, we're not making precedent because we don't want to change the past. We don't want to, create some new law. This is only specifically addressing this case. In this situation, that was the original intent, but now the entire class is opened up. So if you feel like you've been denied, now you can go through the process, but I would say move fast because the government, as their spokesperson said, this is an attempt by a rogue judge to thwart President Trump's agenda and push radical gender ideology that defies biological truth. Stating that means that we're appealing. I mean, thanks for letting me know. We like your opinion, Judge, but at the end of the day, we're going to be appealing in a couple days.
Well, what does that appeal really look like, and what happens after that? Because we're talking about so many court cases where this order's going in, now that's getting, pulled back, and we just kind of go back and forth. So what does the path look like for the Trump administration to try to push this through?
The path looks like you need to find an appeals court that will hear this, and there needs to be a panel that's likely open to falling in the way that you want to go. But even if it doesn't, they still have one more ace up their sleeve. They can always go to the Supreme Court. So fall in U.S. District Court, fall in an appeal, get to the Supreme Court, and then get your way. And that's what we've been seeing. And I think that's logically where we go.
All right. Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes, thank you as always for joining us this morning and weighing in on that.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.